Hormozi just revealed that his marketing channel with the highest ROI is email. But compared to other business gurus, his advice is completely different because he actually understands how and when to leverage it. After generating tens of thousands of dollars for my e-commerce clients, I will go over his complete email strategy step by step and tell you what you can and should apply to your e-com brand.
In this video, I'm going to show you how to turn $1,000 into $45,000 through email. And over the last 90 days, we spent just under 10 million emails from acquisition.com, and we generate tens of millions of dollars across our portfolio using email itself. And in this video, I'm going to break down emails that I've sent, and I'll give you the 10 tactics that have worked very well for us so far. First things first, here's why I think you should do email. I was a moron and decided to not email for the vast majority of my life because I hate money, apparently. And so the average ROI for email, depending on the source you look at, is between 35 and 45 return. So that means that for every dollar you spend on software or putting time into your email, you can get like $45 back. Like imagine if there was a stock investment that you could 50x in a week. Well, that's kind of like what email is, and people still don't do it, myself included. And part of the reason that making money on email is more profitable is because you actually have already spent the time to acquire this contact. And so in a lot of ways, email is just follow-up. And so you spent the cost to acquire the lead, now you're just reminding them that you exist. And so basically the only real cost is just whatever software you use and whoever or whomever you may have to pay in order to write the emails. That's pretty much it. And so one email writer can send an email to 10 million people, and that is a tremendous amount of leverage that you get in your business that a lot of people ignore.
So first of all, the return on investment for email is tremendous. He's definitely right, but it's really important to ask yourself, why is that? And the reason for that is, you already mentioned it, you already spent money to acquire this customer, this subscriber. So it would be a shame if you wouldn't send out to them frequently. You already spent money to get that person on your list, so now get that money back.
Into those. Now let's talk about different tactics. So first things first, everybody wants to talk about how much you can make from email, but no one talks about unsubscribing, right? No one wants, it's like the dirty other, oh yeah, people every time you send a communication out, there's gonna be people unsubscribe. And I don't see unsubscribing nearly as negatively as other people do, and I'll explain why. When I look at our people who show up to workshops, a lot of times they are people who unsubscribed. So it's not an insult. It's like they know who I am and they're in. I don't see it as a negative per se. Also, every single day, thousands of people unsubscribe from my Instagram, thousands of people unsubscribe from YouTube, but I just have more people who subscribe. And so I just see the process of advertising is letting people know about your stuff. And so if someone unsubscribes, they absolutely know about you and your stuff. And it doesn't necessarily mean they don't want to buy. It just might not mean that that form of communication or that particular inbox they opted in with is the one that they want to use. Fine, no big deal. So instead of trying to hide it, it's like probably if I see a brand try and make unsubscribing hard, I hate them. And so I have always tried to do the opposite of that. I think number one is that you want to make unsubscribing easy. Don't keep people captive. And let me explain by that is I don't want to keep sending emails to an uninterested segment of my list because it'll actually make my domain deliverability go down long-term. By sending it for vanity metrics of, look, I sent more emails, I actually decrease the likelihood that the people who do want to read my emails actually get them. And so that's why you want to make unsubscribing easy, because if you make it hard, they might not unsubscribe, but then they go dormant, which is actually worse for you. So make it easy.
All right, two things on what Hormozi just said about unsubscribing. First of all, I feel the same about brands not giving you the option to unsubscribe. When I want to unsubscribe from a brand and they don't give me the option to do that, I will try my best to do that and I will find a way. Even if that means reporting that email as spam, I will do it because I don't want to receive that content anymore. Second point is, please don't be scared of people unsubscribing. Actually, you want to opt for a certain amount of people unsubscribing from your list every single day, because this shows you that you're sending out enough content to a broad enough audience. You basically want to opt for a 3-to-1 ratio of new people subscribing to your list versus people unsubscribing. And if your unsubscribe rates are simply too low, it's a really good sign that you're not sending enough emails. And if they're too high, it's one of two things. Either it's your emails not being relevant to the audience, or you sending out too much emails.
And it's like, you have to take the logical extreme here. If you are unafraid to email because you don't want to get unsubscribes, why do you have emails to begin with? It's kind of like saying, well, I don't want to post content because then people would stop following me. It's like, well, the only point of them following you is to advertise your stuff. And so if the logical extreme of this is just never do anything, then that's probably not the right conclusion.
To all the brands that are telling me that they're afraid to email their list and that they don't want to lose subscribers, I'm telling them exactly that. Ask yourself, why did people subscribe in the first place? And yes, it is because they want to receive content, they want to get an offer, a welcome offer. So something about your email list is valuable to them. And as long as they see the value, and as long as you provide the value, you can send out what you want, how often you want. And when people perceive your list as not valuable enough to be subscribed, they will simply unsubscribe, and you will simply have one subscriber less that doesn't even want to receive your stuff anyway. Imagine you are going to a party and there are a lot of people, and some of those people for some reason don't like you being there and you're not really welcomed. Now, I don't know about you, but when I'm in a certain situation, when I'm in a certain group of people where I'm not welcomed, I will simply leave. I could stay to satisfy my ego or whatever, but I'm not welcomed, so the time I spend with those people will not be worth it anyways. So I'm gonna just leave the party and go home. And it's the same for your email list. When people don't want to be on that party, when people don't want to be in that email list, they simply want to go, and you should simply let them.
Number 2, and this one is a little bit more advanced, but very worth it. So HubSpot ran a really cool research study where they saw that they had an increase. So already insane ROI for email. They had a 791% increase in ROI from email from one thing, which is people who segmented their lists got way higher returns on email, which should be somewhat unsurprising, right? Like if you send the right emails to the right people, then they will be more likely to buy your stuff. So if I send a beginner email to a list of advanced people, they'll be like, this is not for me. And to the same degree, and also it doesn't have anything to do with the email, it just might not be right for them. And to the same degree, if I send an advanced thing to people who don't have a business or want to start a business, then they're gonna be like, this doesn't apply. And so it's way less about how good the email is and so much more about who's getting it. And so segmenting the list is basically like if you have any qualifiers on your opt-in, so like revenue, or if they have a business or don't have a business, which are some of the ones that we have in our opt-in process, this allows us to send content that's more applicable to those people.
So he is right, you want to send the right message to the right people. But one important thing on that, some people don't understand this concept correctly, and they'll just set up some random segments for their brand, where in each segment you have 20 to 30 people in them, and you have like 30, 40, 50, 60 segments. I've seen all of this stuff. You don't need to send hyper-segmented emails to hyper-segmented audiences, even for a brand that's doing 8, 9 figures. It's not worth it. Yes, the more you do in terms of revenue, the more every tiny incremental increase matters, but especially for a brand doing around 6 to 8 figures, which I assume you are when you're watching this video, be a bit more cautious with your segmentation. Yes, you should have segments in place. Yes, you can experiment a bit with them, but don't overdo it. Don't get crazy with that. There are way higher leverage things to do. For example, optimize your pop-up, send out frequent campaigns, and have all core flows in place. And then you can do things like testing, segmentation, get more advanced with it. So again, I'm not saying to blast out your message to your entire list. Never do that, please. But keep it simple with your segments and don't go crazy on that.
So that's one email. Now let's talk about a different tactic. So mobile optimized design. So right now, 60% of global internet traffic is mobile devices. And what's crazy is that a lot of people's emails are not optimized for mobile viewership. And that's where a lot of people are actually going to be reading your thing. And so you want to make sure that you look at your emails on a desktop format and on a mobile format so that they display the right way for the viewing platform they're being viewed through. When you do that, all you do is, first objective of email, increase the likelihood they convert. And this is especially true if you had images to your emails. This is more like e-commerce does a lot of this. That's where like images can get totally messed up, not look good. It just looks unprofessional and totally plummets the click-through rates for emails.
You hear me preaching it every single day. You hear other email marketers preaching it every single day. Now you hear Hormozi preaching it. Optimize your emails for mobile, because if you don't, people will simply go to a different brand that sends out emails which they can actually read. And yes, it is that dramatic. Most big email service providers, for example, Klaviyo, MailChimp, Omnisend, they all let you optimize the email for desktop first, and then you can switch over to mobile. And what that does is people simply design the email and then they'll just paste it in as a desktop layout, and the mobile users will actually be sent the desktop email as well. And you have at least two thirds of your list being on mobile. So 2/3 or even more than 2/3 of your revenue is dependent on people needing to do this and needing to zoom in with their eyes, with their finger or whatever they can use to understand your email. So make sure that your email is bigger on mobile than it is on desktop. Frequent width for your design canvas for desktop emails is 600 pixels. And then for the mobile version of that, you want to use 375 pixels. So if you have a text on the 600 pixel width email, which spans over 500 pixels, and you bring it over to the mobile version, Of course, it won't fit onto those 375 pixels. So instead of making it smaller, you will simply decrease the width and make it fit into that container while still keeping the same size.
Next tactical nugget, clear CTA. So I'm not going to harp on like, of course, you want to have a reason to do it and you have a reason to do it now and tell them exactly what they get. Those are, CTA 101. But I think that having basically a continued interest CTA and then have a I want to take action and buy CTA are not terrible ideas to have in an email. And so I'm not saying like, I'm not one of these people who's like, only have one link, only have one CTA. I think you can have more than one, but it's more that you only want to have one per audience or per objective. Now, if you have 5, then that can get, kind of aggressive overall, but I think 1 or 2, you're safe as long as there's a clear reason that someone would click one versus the other.
We'll need to make a distinction on that because Hormozi is simply not talking about e-commerce in detail. So for e-commerce, usually you don't have audiences that can be segmented in so distinct segments that you want to send them different call to actions. For his audience, for example, you can simply segment the audience into business owners that are at different stages of their business, for example. And of course, in this case, you can send them all varieties of different call to actions that will work for different audiences. But for an e-commerce brand, I would advise you to use 1 CTA per email, maximum in some cases, in some emails, 2 CTAs. Don't overdo it. Don't have 5 call to actions listed below each other, because then people will simply not know what to do. They simply can't decide. So you want to send 1 call to action per email, 2 maximum. And you can, of course, send this call to action to whoever you want in your audience.
How often should you send email and to whom should you send it? Big picture, after talking to the best email marketers I knew before deciding to start my newsletter, number 1 is the perfect cadence seems to be around 3 times a week. All right, now again, I don't like rules, and if you hate rules as much as I do, then nothing is a rule. All right, you could send 2, you could send 1, whatever. But most people found that basically the more often you email, the more you will convert. It's kind of like more content, but there is a spot where people are like, I'm getting bothered. But the thing is that's where I feel like putting more effort into making the emails high quality pays dividends. Because think about it like this. If you send someone stuff that always makes them money, then how much would they like you to send them? Tons.
And this is exactly what I always preach, because yes, the general rule of thumb is around 3 emails per week, even for e-commerce. But how do you know it exactly works for your brand this way? Why don't you try out what's the perfect cadence for your brand? Why don't you try sending out 1 email per day? And trust me, it will not work. It will lead to high unsubscribes in the 2 weeks you're testing it out. But then try out sending an email every other day or every 3 days. And then by continuously testing out which cadence exactly works for your brand, you might end up at 2 emails per week, and you might also end up at 5 emails per week. It totally depends on your audience, and it also totally depends on the quality of the content you're sending out. So when you're sending out more content, when you're sending out more emails, it is really, really important that you're keeping the quality and that you're not just blasting to your list. So when you're sending out 2 emails per week compared to when you're sending out 5 emails per week, the 5 emails per week should not be less quality than the 2 emails. But again, don't go crazy when you don't have the capacity and the time to do it. Just simply send out 3 or 4 emails per week and it will definitely pay off.
I'm gonna give you 3 timing tactics around emails. These are all just golden BBs, things that'll just give you tiny little lifts in terms of your overall performance. And so if you're sending, let's say 1 email a week, then you might as well maximize the likelihood and effectiveness of that email. And so if you're B2C, it seems like Mondays and Tuesdays tend to be better days overall. And so there's an average increase in open rate of about 18% for B2C, so business to consumer. Now, if you're B2B, this is kind of interesting, it's Wednesday. That's actually the bigger lift day, and actually is about comparable to the B2C lift. So I see that as like, there's just a time period for more people that consumers are more distracted, call it, on Mondays and Tuesdays, whereas business people, B2B, are like working Mondays and Tuesdays. Like they get to catch their breath on Wednesday. Now, I could just be adding a narrative to this, who knows? But fundamentally, the stats are there, and this is across zillions of emails. I got that from Neil Patel. He's an awesome marketer. And so he shared that with me in terms of days. The last tactic is around what time of day. So that was days of week. The next is time of day. And so it seems like there's 2 sweet spots that occur. And one is basically right before lunch and right after lunch. So it's like 10 to noon and then 1 to 3 are the kind of like these sweet spots where they open. The first thing in the morning, I think, is typically a very competitive time because there's so many actual real business emails that they're going through that they're like, well, I gotta deal with this stuff first.
For the send time, I have nothing to add. 10 to 12 and 1 to 3 usually performs best. You might want to test out if your audience likes emails in the evening because, of course, people are coming home and people are sitting in front of their TV and checking their phone and whatever. But generally speaking, if you want to start a point, just So like 10 to 12 or 1 to 3. And then for the days, of course, I'm not doing B2B email marketing, so I don't know about that. But regarding the B2C email marketing, so email marketing for e-commerce brands mainly, Monday and Tuesday work great. One day that usually tends to perform really great as well is Thursday. Usually it's just the days in the beginning or in the middle of the week where people have time to catch their breath, because usually toward the end of the week, people just want to go home, people just want to have weekend, and they're already planning their weekend, so they don't bother reading emails that much. And especially on the weekend, which is a really interesting test to do as well, you might want to see if Saturdays or Sundays work, because for some people, you might assume that they have time, they're at home, they're reading their emails, they're opening messages, they're watching television, whatever they're doing. And for the other half, you might assume that they're maybe out and about and they're going to the beach, they're doing some crazy activities. I don't know how you spend your weekends, but it might be totally different. Some people like to do some crazy stuff and others just like to sit at home and, I don't know, read their emails, for example. So make sure that you're always testing it out. But again, if you want a general starting point, just send out Monday, Tuesday, or Thursday. Wednesday also doesn't underperform that much. And you can also try it Friday. So during the week, most of the time, especially Monday to Thursday, people will most likely engage a lot with your emails. Alright, hard cut. If you want a full breakdown on your exact email account, feel free to book a call down below. I'll simply audit your email account for free, and I'll give you an exact action plan for the next 30 days that you can simply decide to walk away with. So feel free to book a call down below. And now have a great rest of the day. See you on the next one.